Hello and welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. I am Nick Rohn, Director of Technology for the Asset Leadership Network, and I'm excited for a special program today. We originally had Steve Korse scheduled, but he wasn't able to make it. And Lindsay Ziegler from the Andrew James Advisory Group is head of the US delegation to ISO TC 255, 251, I think. But anyway, she is out of the country for that meeting in Norway. And so today we have Kimon Onuma here, who's going to be also a part of the A55K training course, and really excited always to have Kimon with us. So before we get to the presentation for today, we just want to thank patron members, Jacobs, Mantech, Onuma, especially, ABS Quality Evaluations, and CGI, as well as all our organizational members, especially the Andrew James Advisory Group. But really, we'd love to grow this list, so please reach out if you're watching and wonder how the ALN can help improve your emission success. And with that, we'll just say we have some upcoming events. May 13th, we have another ALN book club discussion on Nexus by Noah Yuval Harari, information systems, networks from the Stone Age to AI. Really interesting read and really tied into what we do here at the ALN. So find out more on May 13th. And we also, May 15th, have a Thursday at 3 with Christina Benti, former mayor of Golden. So love to have Christina back. And then June 12th, we have the launch of our ALN Insurance Asset Leadership Board. So a lot of good upcoming programs. And Mike, was there another program I was supposed to mention at this point? Oh, Steve hasn't quite rescheduled yet, but we will let you know when that's happening.
Exactly. And Nick, also thank you for your invitations for people to join because we are having a lot of discussions now with companies that are coming on board and fueling the excitement of what's happening. And I think what we're talking about today is very exciting because Kimon Onuma is going to be the special guest presenter for the ALN A55K professional training offered by the Andrew James Advisory Group. Lindsay Ziegler, like you said, is not here today. But every time she has her course, there is a section dedicated to a case study, how to write a strategic asset management plan for a specific theoretical hospital or airport or whatever the group is interested in. It changes. And for the June course, Kimon Onuma is going to be presenting a theoretical case study about a community college that benefits from a strategic asset management approach. And we're going to be overlaying what some of the ISO steps are as Kimon provides the presentation today. A small indication of what will be happening if you sign up for the course and take that for 2 weeks at the beginning of June. You got about 2 hours a day of studying and homework to do. And then you can qualify for taking the ALN A55K professional certification exam. And Nick and I have both benefited from that. We're going to just give a little bit of overview of what we have found was important from this. And then Kimon's going to show us a sample of how he will be presenting. And I had read the ISO documents. I immediately understood that they were transformative, that it was an excellent roadmap to follow. They had the steps spelled out in the right order, and I was all in. But I didn't fully understand the system approach that is embedded in the documents until I took the course. And I took the course in a 2.5 day intensive in-person experience. And the exchange of comments among the other students is what really drove everything home for me. And I think that this training is something that is unique in the world that the ALN offers, and it has immeasurable benefits in understanding how to implement a culture of asset management at your organization. Nick, what did you think about the class when you took it?
Well, yeah, everything you said and more. I really think sometimes we say asset management, it's not rocket science, but man, a roadmap can help because the systems that you're applying maybe a simple principle in theory to are getting more and more complex by the day. So having a clear way to prioritize and place to start and places to go from that starting point in whatever industry or sector or whatever business challenge faces you at the time. I think it's an amazing tool. And the course, like Mike said, really is important for actually being able to implement the standard. You can read the standard, and it's, not a huge book, but it's not short either. And there's a lot to it. And just seeing a number of ways that it has been implemented, could be implemented, and common pitfalls and things that people overlook. It's all really, really helpful in actually getting the value out of what's otherwise just a document on the shelf. This is really where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, and it would not seem like going through three standards that have hundreds of shall statements, not hundreds, but a lot of shall statements, um, is going to get embedded to you, but it is the case study that is discussed among the group that really drives everything home. And so Kimon's going to give us an example of how he's going to be providing a presentation on his strategic approach to organizing the information as an asset so that your real assets can be managed to provide more value to your organization. And Nick and I are going to be saying, oh, that's ISO 55,000, value. That's ISO 55,001. So in the course, it'll be documented more thoroughly on the slides. But Kimon, you can come on and join us now. And
Yes,
thank you.
hello.
Yes, thanks for participating today and for volunteering. Very nice of you for the course that will be offered June 2nd through the 13th or 14th, I believe. We'll provide that link. How are you doing today, Kimon?
Great. Thanks. Thanks for having me join.
So you have given so much of your time and freely shared your information. It's really appreciated. And so this is kind of common for you, but it's got a little different twist in that it's going to have the asset management overlay.
Yeah.
Can you just go ahead and start indicating what you're going to be showing to the students of the June course?
Yeah, so we're going to be using some case studies from actual owners, and one of them is Los Angeles Community College District. They're the largest higher educational institution in the U.S., if not the world. Um, and just their approach to managing total cost and understanding the life cycle and understanding how they're interacting with their students and professors and basically the customers and how they're managing their assets to support that mission.
So this is a great example of how high-level professionals are following most of the principles and steps in ISO 55,000, but connecting them with the system helps an organization get more out of their activities. And as you said, the first part of the ISO 55001 to-do list is your strategic asset management plan shall align with your organizational objectives, your mission. And how important is that in getting a project started properly, Kimon?
Well, there's obviously kind of a higher level mission, but there's also some other parts to it. So if you try and cover everything, it seems daunting and overwhelming, but there are definitely ways to start with the pieces. For example, if you say the highest risk item that we have or the opportunity that we have, how can we address that? You don't have to boil the ocean, but you have to start somewhere and you can keep on adding incrementally. I describe it like Legos. You don't have to have the entire Lego set. You start with a few and you start building on top of that with standards, with ISO standards. You can start creating consistency. And all owners that we've worked with over and over again have this problem of silos and disconnected systems that are not talking to each other. So it becomes very difficult to cut across the different uses. But from an organization perspective, if you declare we want our systems to work like Legos, then that becomes the starting point of, okay, does this look like a Lego or not? If it doesn't, then it's not really part of the system because we can't plug it into everything else.
Okay, so that relates to ISO 55011 7.8 now. It used to be 7.4, but the new version has changed. You shall have an information management system. And what you just said is the information management system.
Mm-hmm.
Software should be able to plug and play and be able to share the information freely and openly. And that's a policy that can be part of your strategic asset management plan if you're doing things properly.
Yeah. And if you don't ask for that, then you will get software that does not plug and play because from a technical perspective, it should be able to plug into other systems or software. But if the owner doesn't declare we want these type of Legos, then they're going to get all kinds of different sizes of Legos that can't plug into each other. And that's just a question that needs to be asked from a mission perspective or governance perspective that we want to be able to do this. We don't want 100 different things that don't talk to each other.
Okay, so that also addresses ISO 55001 point six risk management. And
Mm-hmm.
you are at risk if your information is not able to be shared openly among multiple programs. So
That's right.
people, all right, so
Mm-hmm.
why don't you go ahead? This is the idea, Kimon makes a comment and I try to assign it to the proper ISO category.
Yeah. Yeah, so to make this real, this is we presented this set of slides before publicly. So this is the Los Angeles Community College District, the largest in the US, and these are the owners and the facility teams there. We received the top award at the Campus Facility Technology Association. Others recognizing this was a very valuable way of thinking about assets and facility life cycles. So the challenge is, first of all, there's the entire state of California that is 72 districts, 5,000 buildings. Then Los Angeles district within that is one district outside out of the state. And out of the 5,000 buildings, they have 742 buildings. So it's massive, in other words. Many students and many different needs, but the underlying information about their facilities and assets needs to be able to cut across a very large area, entire county of Los Angeles, pretty much, with 9 different colleges spread out around with 740 buildings. So that's the challenge. How do we most efficiently manage this information or this portfolio covering 900 square miles if you take the size of Los Angeles? So it's very spread out, very large. And their enrollment, things are constantly changing. So from a mission perspective, you have enrollment changing, you have different things happening over the years, COVID hits, whatever, the population shifting, the demand is changing. How do you plan for that shift? Maybe I'll pause it. There's probably an ISO thing relating to this, right? Constant change.
Yes. What Nick brought up is how do you plan for this without a strategic asset management plan? And it has been done. The pyramids were built without a strategic asset management plan that went ISO. The Empire State Building was built in 13 weeks without an ISO standard. So some of these are just common sense principles, and knowing who you are serving is one of those first set of principles. Who are the relevant parties? And in this case, the relevant parties are the enrolled population.
Exactly.
Mike, I just want to note you talked about a giant building going up in a pretty short amount of time. But, part of what this does is ensure that that owner, it doesn't just get dropped this giant asset that's then going to last for, 100 years or something and not know what's in it and how to maintain it. And even if they get a bunch of hard copy documents about floor plans and maintenance schedules and everything, if there's not a information management system to keep track of all that, I can only imagine the amount of headaches over the next 100 years and how much money and time wasted. So yeah, it's been done, but this is showing a better way to do things.
Yeah, Kimon's
Mhm.
fully understands the frustration of what you just described.
Yeah. And speaking of large buildings, this is their portfolio size, 12 million gross square feet cut across the different colleges that we talked about, 740 buildings. And then there's this about the funding and how do you actually go about maintaining the existing inventory, uh, and then capital planning for new projects, and then how do you balance that between deferred maintenance, for example, that whole funding, the buckets of money that you need to spend.
Yes, and this interestingly is covered in the ISO system under leadership. Leadership shall ensure that the resources are available. Again, common sense, this is happening already, but when it's put together in a document that ties these elements, then you can check the boxes and say, yes, top leadership signed the strategic asset management plan. They should also sign the check to make sure it goes right.
And even these three simple buckets typically have many systems kind of supporting that one bucket that don't talk to the next one. So for example, in the capital planning program, might be a whole different set of tools, whole different set of data, conflicting data that doesn't know what the existing inventory is. So when you start saying from a governance perspective that we want not only to plan for new construction, we want to relate it back to our existing inventory and our maintenance. So for example, if you're not maintaining an existing building very well, it's going to start falling apart faster, which means you're going to need to build, rebuild, or renovate. So it's all kind of a circle that kind of goes around.
Mhm.
And just another kind of snapshot of the size of the capital program here. It's pretty massive, as you can imagine. And the resources are always tight, obviously, with the community colleges. So you have to be as efficient as possible, which is another interesting angle for this particular client for us is it's not unlimited resources, which actually is a good constraint, which forces efficiency. And that becomes more of an opportunity rather than a risk if you can turn it around. So there's probably something relating to ISO here too, I bet.
Yes, so operations is part of the ISO plan and making sure that you have the money for being able to run your operations is the connecting point here.
So now let's get into the facilities and their challenges. We talked about some of these already, about the challenges of the silos, the asset management, the requirements. The technology obviously is a big deal. Supporting staff, whether it's staff or the students or the technicians, there's many different parties. There's many different parties that are involved, right? That need
Yes,
to,
Kimon is being very sensitive to something we're trying to shift away from stakeholders, which is in the document, the ISO 55,000 documents, but it has negative connotations for American Indians who were not able to hold a stake when Oklahoma was made freely available. So
yeah,
we're saying interested parties.
yeah, everybody's invited to the party.
Exactly. The asset management party.
Yeah. So then I think every owner has this aspiration to be able to manage total cost of ownership, right? And what does it mean for total cost of ownership? It's everything really. You can obviously narrow it down to certain things, but if you think in those terms, that means you need to be able to cut across many of these silos to even understand what the true cost is,
That's again leadership ensuring their resources are available.
right? So these are some again from their slides about what does it mean for them for LACCD. Um, what's a TCO plan? Many different things and support repairs, identify resources. So it's this whole everything is a moving target, nothing static, which is another really interesting dynamic that I've seen over the years. A lot of these plans, whether they're roadmaps or master plans or strategic plans or whatever, we've been very used to delivering documents, binders first, or even PDF files. The minute you bake them into a document, they're outdated and things change immediately. It's almost like if you were to, I describe it like if you were to call up an Uber and you printed out the map a week before to see where the rides are in your neighborhood. Well, that doesn't work. We want to know immediately, how do we get a ride in this part of to get from point A to point B.
And that actually is the heart of the matter. Society is at a point now where tools are evolving so quickly, that's changing processes so quickly, that we really need to have a plan for how we're going to be using these tools. And we really drive home the point that having secure open standards allows the information to flow freely so that the best software available can be used. But that's not always fully understand because it's so complex. And in ISO 55001 7.6 data information plan, having what Kimon is saying in place from the very beginning helps ensure that the culture of asset management that allows this information to inform more real-time, more important, not more important, but improved decision-making is critical.
Mhm.
So we're talking about these other elements of the ISO process, but in the information age, so much is rooted in having a secure information asset management plan from the start.
Yeah, and there's many layers to that too, right? So there's the technology or the data about the asset, right? But then there's the physical asset. And this is where we're getting into digital twin territory. But if you don't know what you physically have, whether it's a car or a building or a piece of equipment in your asset registry, then how are you going to actually track how many things do I own? What's the condition of it? If we want to get to TCO, is that piece of equipment available? Did somebody walk off with it? Because I see a comment from John about tracking loss of assets, right? So it's this physical asset and the digital information. And if you have a way to track, well, here's the physical thing in the classroom. We have a high value, whatever it is, piece of equipment, and we have that asset information in a database in a system, then you could say, do we need to fix it? Do we need to buy a new one? Is it not working? Or maybe it's gone. Somebody walked off with it. And how do we keep that? Everything is a moving target, in other words. And the technology is there to start doing these things. And this is more of a management and governance approach of what does the owner want to do with that. And you can't solve everything at once, like I mentioned earlier, but at least if you start thinking in these terms, these Legos start clicking together. Otherwise, it turns into another silo that you can't even count the number of assets that you have.
And that is the common condition for almost all owners you've encountered.
Yeah. Every single owner that we work with is struggles with that. And there are many reasons for it because there are legacy systems that are silos. The right questions aren't being asked when you bring in new systems or new vendors so there's a set of questions that need to be asked very simple questions actually that are not being asked. They're not asking the right questions many times, and you basically get a solution that is not one of the Lego pieces, and all of a sudden you have new silos. So let's talk a little bit about the parties involved. This is an interesting slide that we use quite a bit to say, okay, all of these complex systems, right? You don't expect the occupant in the building to even understand any of the technology, right? They're just there and they're saying, hey, the room is hot, the room is cold. That's the customer saying that we're not comfortable here in this classroom, therefore we can't learn what we're being taught, or we can't get in because the whatever, there's water on the floor, or it's something else, the equipment's missing. So the occupant has a view into the system to be able to communicate to the facility team to say, send a technician out to fix this leak in the roof so we can get into the classroom. The technician has a completely different view. They might want to be able to see the information about the specific asset. So the different parties here all have a stake in, stake's the wrong word now, isn't it? All have,
Oh,
what's the
stake
right?
is appropriate word.
Oh, it is.
They
Okay.
have a stake.
Not a holder.
Yeah, you can't be a stakeholder. And this is critical in ISO 55001 4.2, which is involve all relevant parties. And
Mhm.
what you're doing by having that ISO 55001 7.6 data and information management issue addressed right from the strategic asset management plan is that the information from all these people can flow freely through the different software programs to
Mhm.
allow them to get what they need so that the assets serve the mission of the organization. In this
Exactly.
case,
Yeah.
teaching students.
Mhm. And I'm showing, obviously, I'm showing my slide here. So I have our green box there of what we do, but you should, as an owner, be able to take that green box and replace it with any other app and not lose that functionality. That's another important piece from a governance and management perspective, demanding the ability to swap out applications with another application that comes along. But with every owner that we work with, imagine all of these parties, right? These parties that have their own tools. So let's say the managers, the facility managers are scheduling repairs to an asset or a building. The occupants are trying to schedule when do we go to that class in the building. Those scheduling systems are typically completely different silos that don't talk to each other. In other words, they're scheduling classrooms and they don't know when repairs are being happened. Therefore, all of a sudden you have a conflict of that classroom. It's a very simple concept, but if those systems don't talk to each other, therefore you need standardization and even open source connectivity between systems to say, we see you have a scheduling system for technicians, we see you have a scheduling system for occupants. Those two systems need to at least talk to each other. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the technician party into the building to repair that request that came from the occupant. And all those
And
stories, you can mix those in any ways, but it's the same story across the board.
and in the class, you will be going into more detail on how this has successfully worked for some of the clients that you have served. So it's a
Yeah.
great opportunity for people interested in creating a culture of asset management at their organization to have the training and then also be able to get this practical application from a leader in information management for assets. Um,
Yeah.
Kimon, we're almost over. We can
Mm.
go over time, but I also see some people who have taken the class online. And if
Mhm.
anyone like Jack Kelly would like to become a panelist and make any comments to the audience, please just send a chat and Nick will make you a panelist. Um, so here's another example of the different parties needing similar but not the same information for their different
Yeah,
job
and actually,
requirements.
I see a question from, I don't see the name, but somebody from Duke is talking about the systems are not talking to each other. So yeah, we see this all the time. So imagine this, you need to go and different parties need to schedule that fix that we talked about, right? That's more of a maintenance thing, but imagine an emergency situation if your information can't get out to emergency responders, which happens all the time. So if you have these silos, not only are they inconvenient, they actually become dangerous in times of crisis. If you don't have access to good information, then you're really not giving the standard of care that as an owner you should be giving to the parties involved, to your customers. And there's no technology reason not to be able to do that. The technology has been there for years. There's nothing new about the technology. That's why the governance part and the ownership part in ISO is the most critical thing. You have to know what to ask for And in the class, we're going to give kind of guidelines. I think I'm kind of jumping ahead here, Mike, but the classes
Go ahead.
we can actually share some of those strategies of what you should, what are the questions you should be asking to be able to get to some of these, the right answers that you should, to get schedules to tie across, for example.
So there's so much more to relate what you do. One of the things that I like to talk about is the continual improvement, which is at the very end of the ISO 55001 document. But the continual improvement is also addressed by using these secure open standards, because then you're able to use the next best software with the information that you've been holding as and owning as the owner, and now process it in a new and beneficial way. You've seen this throughout your career, haven't you, Kimon?
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't have to be difficult. You can start simple, but you do need to have kind of a basic structure in place to ask the right questions. That's maybe the main takeaway here is um, owners have in the past kind of been asking, what application do we buy to be able to do these things? That's the wrong question. The question is, what mission and what goals do we have? And then what do we want from a technology perspective to protect our data as an asset? Because data is an asset. If you don't own your data, you don't own your physical assets either. If you don't know the scheduling of your building to connect it to the scheduling of the fixing of the building, you don't really own the schedule. Somebody else does. Therefore, it creates a risky situation. So you have to think in terms of the data being owned by the owner, which is what we're showing with LACCD. Then you can start saying, okay, we have consultants, we have vendors. Okay, you all are going to build your Legos on top of our Legos. Don't bring your box of different toys to the party. We want your toys to fit with our toys, basically.
Yeah.
To put it in simple terms.
And I think we can also extend the preview a little bit, Kimon, by saying having that information about your assets, your buildings, the valuable equipment inside of them, the copyrights and patents in the heads of the people are challenged during times of disaster, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, fires. And this is a critical area where the fluidity of the information can be life-saving, let alone asset-saving.
Yeah. And not only that, I think there's a lot of discussion about smart cities and smart buildings and how smart our buildings and cities are, but they fail us when we need them the most. For example, these fires, I wrote about the fires in LA, but the Edison electrical system that possibly caused the fire that we didn't know about, a lot of other risks like that cause problems. So it's some ways it's almost like the obligation of cities and governments and owners to have information that is going to save lives, let alone save efficiency in operations. So I think we need to start demanding that level of care from owners that, hey, if you want us to be in a community college and you can't protect us from disasters or other failures, then that's you're missing your obligation as an owner to protect us in the building or the customers or whatever. You can make a story out of that, but there's probably an ISO thing around that too.
It's a risk management again.
Risk management, yeah.
Because you don't want to be sued. It's really overly simple. And speaking of simple, what attendees of this course will be able to get is the detailed look at the ISO Asset Information Management System, and then simple approaches that can be applied to help you actually begin implementing this complex system using simple steps that Kimon has proven. So it's a real good peanut butter and chocolate combination of activities that students from in the June Andrew James Advisory Group course for the ALN A55K professional certification. So thank you, Kimon, for giving a little bit of a taste of what people will be looking for in the class, and thanks for participating in that class in June.
Thank you.
Nick, let's roll through the numbers again so that people will see what's coming up.
Oh, I shared the wrong screen. Let's try that again. Okay, here we go. Yeah, thanks again to Kimon for presenting today in lieu of Lindsay. She would have loved to have been here, but is otherwise busy. And thank you to our patrons, Jacobs, Mantech, Onuma, ABS Quality Evaluations, and CGI, as well as all our organizational members, especially the Andrew James Advisory Group. And we just want to mention these upcoming events, and I'll then get to the A55K upcoming course schedules. And you can reach out to Lindsay, or Mike and I can put you in the right direction.
Well, thanks again, Kimon. Thank you, Nick. And thank you to all of our attendees and those who are watching in the future for time traveling.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.